yourself, king. Be yourself. Be yourself, queen. Be yourself. Be yourself, king. Be yourself. Be yourself, queen. Be yourself.
What's up, y'all? This is Dr. Lakeshia Smith. Welcome to another rendition of the YMC Me Podcast. And shout out to the young man who sung the intro. I promise you all know who this guy is, but I ain't gonna tell on him, right? But gotta do an intro for Santi Dean. Santi, how you feeling?
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Santi Dean, back again with another episode on the YMC Me Podcast. And we are excited to have another episode with our YMC Me community.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Look, anything great is a product of a collective. So I'm always excited when Santi is in here working with me, at least, because, you know, she always working everywhere else within YMC. So this episode is good. Like, all our episodes are good, but this one I'm really know you're gonna enjoy because we have Lakeshia Smith. Lakeshia, I met her at a equity conference with Wake County this year, and the presentation was amazing. And I pulled her to the side and I was like, hey, look, I think we might be cousins, but I'm joking, we're not cousins. We got the same last name though. And I just loved your presentation. Would you mind coming on a podcast that I'm doing? So let me give you a little bit about her. She is a dedicated educator, known for her leadership and commitment to student success. Currently, she is the assistant principal at Leesville Road Middle School. At the age of 12, she started at the Girls Club in Raleigh, and through her involvement with this club, she discovered her passion for educating children. After starting her career in 2015, she quickly got the reputation for innovation and genuine connections with staff, students, and family. She's been serving at Leesville Road Middle School for 3 years, and she and I spoke, and you're going to hear it on the podcast. She's recently introduced a club at the school called Be Unique, which is focused around celebrating student individuality and diversity to enhance student performance and social emotional learning. And last but certainly not least, I have to say, she likes Nipsey Hussle, and I like Nipsey Hussle too. So that was enough. That was enough for me. So, Santi, how you feeling about it?
Sit back and get ready to tap into Keisha's perspectives with the focus on mentoring and equity.
So, well, since I have the subject matter expert on the call.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, from what I saw, what I saw and heard, I have a subject matter expert here. So, I want to start and ask you, can you tell us about your background and what inspired you to get involved in youth mentoring or in that space?
Yeah, sure. So it goes back to probably my early years in the school systems. And I say plural because I've lived in several states and landed back in North Carolina. And so at each location, there were pivotal people that I can still recall today, from when I was a kindergartner in a Catholic school up through my 12th grade year in high school. So back in South Carolina, you know, I was in Catholic school, then I went from Catholic to public based upon my dad was a pastor. So they kind of stationed him in areas where in the denomination that he was serving at churches that were not fully flourishing. And so we arrived back in North Carolina. And so it was not until fully my high school years where I kind of grasped like, this is what I want to do. And so education has always been something I wanted to do. Initially, it was just a high school business teacher. And so, you know, in life, it takes you down various paths and things of sort. But there were Black women along this path of high school that spoke to me and made sure that I was headed into the right direction. And my parents were not college graduates. My dad did seminary school. My mom started some weight tech, some associates, but didn't complete. And so it left me with what's next. And I had a counselor who said, "Hey, where are you going to school?" I'm like, "What, school? What? I'm in high school right now. I wasn't even thinking about college." But she was a Black female counselor. And her husband at the time served as our superintendent. So just saw Black leadership. Then I played sports. And so I was on a basketball team, and she was a Black female coach and saw my rough edges. I was always a good student. I just was challenged with behaviors, right? And it was purpose behind that. So my behaviors were based on rebellion and those types of things and the need to be seen. But she saw something more in me that I didn't see in myself. And so it was a Black female basketball coach. And then as time progressed, I took some business courses, and she was a Black business teacher, a Black accountant who went to an HBCU. So I'm seeing multiple faces that look like me in a school system. And so it was also next door to my basketball coach, who took me in as well. She was like an auntie, and these all are individuals who I then learned to look up to because they went to college, they are in their careers. And so I'm like, wow, okay, so this is what's next. And so just being assisted along that path of how do I get to what's next? And so it was pivotal for me to see Black women educating. And I just gravitated to business, although I like doing certain things, but business was a niche for me, if you will. I could pick it up, marketing, accounting, personal finance, all of those things. And so that's where it really started. And I'm still in contact with those individuals today. And who are ironically all but one of them who since retired is still in the school system, whether it's an educator in the classroom or administrating or doing some career development work in a high school. So they're still a part of that educational realm. And so that's where it started, is me seeing Black women who cared about my future, my next step after high school, because I had no idea what was next or what am I going to do? I just thought I was going to graduate and get a job, and we just live life and make what I thought then was some money. So that's where that started. And I've always said I wanted to give back what they gave to me. And so that's how I'm doing what I'm doing now, or I'm in education. It wasn't always in a school system. And so, it came kind of a full circle. My undergraduate is finance. I've always had the heart for education, but I was thinking about money, just to be honest and transparent. So I wanted to go to Wall Street in New York. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. I curved that idea, got out of college, and it wasn't the path of finance. And so when then I, taking jobs here and there, decided, hey, I want a master's. I'm going to get my master's in teaching, did that. And so now I was able to pair finance and education by doing what I did. And I was hired as a high school business teacher.
Okay, that's great. I learned something new. You and I got to talk. So a part of the interview, there's like segments within it where we highlight certain topics. So I want to move into the space of racial justice, and you kind of, rode the boat straight into here when you spoke on your mentors, the folks that you encountered that helped steer your course. So I want to ask you, what unique challenges do young people of color face today, and how can mentors help address these challenges from your experience?
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna try to make a short response, but I think the club that I'm starting is what they're experiencing, and it's the uniqueness of being who you are. And unfortunately, we are in a society where the color of white has priority or seniority, if you will, in moving forward in various facets of a workforce, right? So whatever career, if you tend to do inventory, you will see there's a white man at the top and subsidiaries. Many of those are other white men. You may see some sprinkles of white women in there, but predominantly white males, right? And then you come into a space like myself where I see a lot of me, and I don't see a lot of me in certain spaces in society. And so some of that take is, some of the things that our ancestors had to endure in paving the way of, I can do the same things. I may not have an education, but I'm just as educated as you, who may have multiple letters, commas behind your name. And so in that, right, in satisfying, and I'm going to say how I feel about the whole degree piece. My degrees aren't for me. They're for those that I'm seeking positions, if you will, because that's basically saying I can go and get this documentation to prove that I can do the work that I'm asking you to hire me to do. That's how I see it. That's my transparency. I'm being candid and honest, right? And so, and that's what in challenging students to think through their passion. I have a mantra that I've had for years, and I'll tell you about that later, but I have a mantra that I've had, that I created for myself for years, which is, you have the power to pursue your passion with purpose. You only have that power to pursue whatever your passion is, and you do that with that purpose. And so my passion has been education. And whatever that looks like, I knew I was the controller of what my purpose is in my passion of education. And so I tell the kids the same thing, is you have to define that piece of passion that drives you. Because if we look at different organizational charts, it's going to deter your lens of I can't, or I'm not fit for, I'm not supposed to be in these spaces, or I don't see much of me in these spaces. But it does boil back to the unique ability that you have to fit into spaces that you don't think you can fit into, seeing it on paper or hearing it out in the world that we live in today. And so that's how I mentor my kids now, is define what are you passionate about? And, for some kids that's challenging because, families who have the lawyers, the doctors, those engineers, the ones that are constituted as making 6 figures plus, or the potential to, are putting that pressure on a kid or their kid who might love arts. And art speaks to their soul, and they want to go in that trajectory, but they want to also please parents. And so maintaining that passion of being whatever the passion is, and being your authentic self, is the direction I work to mentor students, and understanding that, if they're Black or brown, that will play a part in what you do and how you move forward. But if you're passionate about something, you have that power to pursue it in the manner that that purpose is intended for you at some capacity. So that's kind of the long, short version of, hopefully I answered that question.
No, you definitely did. You definitely did. With YMC, we're very, we really take the word collaborative, seriously, and leaving no one behind, really being one for all for one type of organization. So as we go further into the interview, I want to touch the topic of LGBTQ plus and gender identity, and speak on that. And I want to ask you, how do you create a safe and inclusive environment for the LGBTQ plus youth? within your programs or in your school or just in your experience, just how that space could be created?
Yeah, so openly being a part of that community myself, that drove me, because I've worked in high schools. In high schools, you have a little bit more freedom per se of people understanding a gay straight alliance, and you don't necessarily have to be gay to be a part of this alliance, because you're just a supporter. You support your peers, you support the community in a whole. But if you break down in my world here at the school that I serve, the community is a little affluent, and there's some status quos that you don't overstep boundaries. And so that's one that has been brought up, where parents don't want kids knowing about what or who may be identifying with an LGBTQ plus individuals and so on, right? And so that's hence somewhat of the undercurrent of the purpose of the club that I'm creating. I'm not plugging the club, but
no, plug away. That's what this for.
So it's called Be Unique, right? And I'm gonna pull up what the vision is for it, and hopefully to give it an insight of how I'm doing this, right? Which is, we envision a world where individuality is celebrated and diversity is embraced. We aspire to empower people to express their unique identities boldly and confidently. Through our innovative opportunities, inclusive community, and commitment to social impact, we aim to inspire a culture of authenticity, creativity, and acceptance, shaping a brighter, more inclusive future for all. And so with that is, it doesn't matter, right? You are a human at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you identify one way or the other, if you're transitioning from one way or the other. It doesn't matter. You're bringing a unique lens to a space where more uniqueness needs to be validated and appreciated, and diversity needs to be made aware of. And so daily, I tell kids, I don't care how you identify or what. If this is who you are, this is who you are, and you come as you are. And my kids know, and my adults know, I don't care one way or the other. I don't care if you're a Muslim. I don't care if you practice Hindu. It does not matter. And all I see is a human. And that's what, my drive has been. When I was in the classroom, my space was a safe space where we had candid conversations. And I made sure that I set the tone every year that in these conversations, it's a non-judgmental zone. We may not agree. We may disagree. We may agree to disagree. We may agree to agree, disagree to disagree. But in this space, in my classroom, we can have conversations and be okay with what others are saying and how they feel about things. And so that's what I've created. I created in my office when they come and they dislike a teacher, I listen and I help nurture and help them see larger than life, if you will, of what they're facing. And so with that community, it's, politically, right? Politically with a system, you have to tiptoe and make sure you're not pissing people off, or you're not doing things that are, going to bring the news here. And that's one of the things we have is, if it'll bring the news, we're not going to roll with it. But this is a way that I'm not fully saying you are welcome. Saying LGBTQ plus community, you're welcome here. It's all a welcome, and we do celebrate diversity and making sure all feel like they can be a part of something where they're giving back to the community, or they're in a space where they can serve others who may be less resourceful than they are, or may just need someone to walk alongside them that is of the same age range. That's the goal. So that's how I deal with it, is super accepting. You are human. Let's get the work done.
That's great. And when you say that, you remind me of a comedian. He had a joke about how people were perceiving like Black Lives Matter, right? And how some folks would say it, and it was like, well, all lives matter, right? And he was like, dang, just saying matter is like, we just matter. Like the fact that, like you said, if it'll bring the news, status quo, right? And it's unfortunate that we live in a space where we can't directly say, hey, you are welcome, right? It has to be packaged, when we know that there are certain groups that are already felt welcome, right? So we gotta, it just, I appreciate your strategy.
Sure.
Yeah, to make sure that everybody gets their fair share. So, and you are rowing this boat. Like, I feel like I did send you the questions, because the next topic is social homelessness. And excuse me, this is a topic where an individual, a human being, may have a actual home, like a physical, tangible place. However, socially, they feel homeless because they don't have a place that within their identity, within their socioeconomic status, within their race, that they don't have a place. And it really sounds like you're working to come up with solutions for social homelessness. But I want to ask you a question about it, and just get your insight. Does your organization engage in advocacy efforts to address systematic issues that contributes to challenges faced by youth, such as poverty, discrimination, or lack of access to resources?
Yeah, we do have various resources that, speak to the physical, right? And I think a lot of organizations do a great job of speaking to the physical side of social homelessness, right? If it doesn't involve poverty, it's organizations that give you days of the week you can come get food. But I do think that there's a piece of more of that internal feeling that sometimes goes unaddressed because we look the part externally, and there's not a lot of digging that's done to get to the internal. There's not a lot of root gathering of the why, right? Why are we feeling? Why do you have a lot of stuff in your book bag? And let's unpack your book bag of stuff. And it takes me back to when, as a teacher, I would get kids, and for whatever reason, they would come tell me, Miss Smith, I'm going to beat her. I'm going to beat him. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa, talk to me. Let's talk about this. Where are we at? How do we get here? Because they looked at me and da, 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 da. Okay. So, but tell me why fighting is our first level to solve this problem. Because we fight. Is that going to solve the fact that she is not going to look at you again? And so it took me getting to the root of their why. Why do you want to? But why? But why? And I would literally ask to gain their perception of why this act is what I need to take to solve this problem, quote unquote. And I think with what we're speaking of here, the social homelessness, there's not a lot of internal root digging, root uprooting, to get to some of the problems. And, some that it's uncontrollable. But when you're speaking of, I might be a black male in a black male society, but I don't fit in to my brothers. I don't fit in to this fraternity for whatever reason, right? But it's my brothers, and I want to be a part of my brothers, and we get there's levels and things, but why wasn't I selected to be a part of this brotherhood either? These are my brothers. And so I think that's more the work to be done, and that could be the fact of I've been told I'm awkward. I've been told I don't look like I'm a part or can be a part of something. And so it's getting people to understand that, yes, I am unique and I accept me for who I am, whether you accept me or not, but I have to accept me first. And I think that's the work that we kind of override, is that internal work of I need to accept, love, value me first before I seek outside entities or groups to be a part of and to make me feel like I am a part when I'm not. And so those are, again, things that my counselor and I have conversations about, like, what does this look like? Can we do small groups of kids who do not feel like they belong? And we did a survey last year, and that's our theme, belonging, as you were part of our presentation. And there were a crop of kids that didn't feel like they belonged in any part of this school. And so we need to know why. And is that something a counselor can help support? Can a counselor or somebody find resources to help with that? Because there's some root work as to why they don't feel like they belong. And it could be an internal thing, right? It could be, it's just, I don't feel this way. And then it could be things that are not offered that they feel a part of when they, that they could feel a part of if they were offered, and hearing that as well to make those offerings happen.
Thank you. That was very insightful. I hope the listeners are paying attention. So on the YMC Me Podcast, we have an exclusive segment that we like to call Reveal Your Heal, where we like to hone in on mental health and its impact on human beings, right? Just in general. So I wanted to ask you, also being in a space where you probably deal with this a lot. I hate to assume, but I might be accurate about this one. So correct me if I'm wrong, but can you discuss the impact of social media on the mental health of young people? Sounds like I was right.
Yes. So if I could give a percentage, right, I would say, and I'm going to facetiously say it, but 99.9% deals with social media influence. That it can be with bullying. It can be most of it with bullying, if you will, or cyberbullying, if we're calling it, right. But it's very impactful. It's very impactful. And I think it's taken the incorrect turn of what it was initially. I remember when Facebook was a thing, and the intent was connectivity, connecting people from that you may know, or, getting back in contact with them. We graduated high school, ... So it was very innocent at that time. And then I noticed over the course of years, and I removed social media for about 5 years myself, because it was becoming a negative connotation for the world to see. Like, you started seeing fights, you started seeing break-ins, you started just seeing stuff that wasn't conducive to what I was seeking social media for. And so our kids are, it's like a crack epidemic or fentanyl epidemic, that they have to have it. It's a shape when I confiscate phones and take it to the office because they were visible, not even on it, but they just had it out, which is one of our rules. The first thing they do when they receive it is to check their notifications. I mean, they vibrate and ding all the time. And so they're having to check what they're missing, or their peers are texting them in various classes saying that somebody said something. And so it is very disturbing on the mental health, in my opinion, where that's what the first thing they do and wake up to. The last thing they do before they go to bed and the first thing they do when they wake up is access social media. We've had so many cases where fights are going to happen based upon a group chat, based upon a picture that was taken and it was on somebody's story with a ridiculous message. It's terrible. It has definitely done a toll on this generation's mindset and how it's utilized, which we're trying to the best of our abilities, cut down the usage of devices throughout the course of the day and for them to focus more. We don't even permit them at lunch. And now this year we're starting to, you can't even go to the bathroom with your phone because they would text friends and everybody meet up, stuff goes down, and we're suspending kids solely upon social media access.
Okay. I want to, because it's our flagship segment, I'm going to ask another question within it. So the mental health crisis amongst young people is widely recognized. What resources or strategies have you found most effective in addressing this crisis within your programs or your organization?
Yeah, for me, I learn my kids. I get to know who they are. I watch their moves. I notice when a vibrant student, typical vibrant student, their mood has changed. I pay attention to who may be social, who now is individualizing themselves. So I pay attention to my kids and all 200 and something of those kids that I service. I just pay attention and I build a relationship to get to know them. Because again, back to that external piece, they look the part, but there's something underlying, that they may be dealing with. And when I notice it, I'll call it out. I'll be like, hey, come holler at me. What's going on? You look weird. And I did it in the classroom. Like I got a couple of examples of some extreme cases in this world that I reside, right? I was in the classroom and every morning this student had me first thing in the morning and she came in with an attitude, like stone cold attitude. I'm like, yo, what's up? Like, it's 7:45, 7:25 at the time. Why are you up? Why are we in a bad mood? And so it went on for a few weeks. And then one day I did the same thing. I called it out again. I was like, come talk to me. And so I pulled her into the hallway and she said, Smith, she said, I don't tell a lot of people. She said, but I felt like, she said, you haven't changed. You haven't wavered. Every time I came in, you didn't treat me a certain type of way. You maintained you. She said, and so here's my why. My brother just got a bid. And so he's going to be gone. And they, brother, sister, dynamic duo, she slept breathing her brother and he got some time for acting. And she was angry about that. She had that was in her book bag. Like she was angry about that and did not have the outlet to deal with the anger behind her brother going to jail to later, eventually went to prison to do some time. But if I didn't take the time out to recognize her emotion, then I could only imagine how that could have continued to spiral into anger and, what that could have led to. I had another student and that was a Black female. I had an Indian young lady. And, if we look at the stereotype of the Indian family, they're wealthy, they have it all per se. But this young lady, very astute, upright, posture. And I noticed one day she was just not herself. And she began to cry. I was like, hey, what's going on? She began to cry, pulled her out into the hallway and let loose that her father was raping her, was molesting her. And so me knowing my kids, I saw something different. And I do that today. Like when I go through these hallways, I see kids, I speak to kids, I'm very visible. And I notice when things are off and when they're off and when patterns are changing. And I ask questions. So I start to dig. And so if there's something that I can't do, whether it, that like those situations, it may have just been some conversation with the counselor or, and I do bring my counselor in, hey, this is what I found out. I need you to check on to make sure X, Y, and Z. And then it may come out that there's some suicide attempting. And so, we do evaluation. So there are things that are here, right? But my sole resource is me knowing my kids and building a relationship. And Smith, how do you build a relationship with 200-something kids? I'm present. They see me. We high five. What's up? We fist bumping. And I'm just walking in classrooms and in the hallways. And so I'm a little bit of everywhere to see the kids and notice certain things. And then it gets to the point where I have kids come to me and telling me, hey, Smith, I just want to let you know, don't let them tell you that I told you, but Corbin is he's having a problem right now. This is what's going on. Okay, cool. And I'm strategic in, hey, Corbin, what's going on, man? I'm noticing blah, 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 blah. And then, the trust level builds where Corbin just lets me know what's happening in life. And, either there's a story that I can attest to because of my background and how I've pressed on and pressed through things, or if it's out of my control where I do need to bring in an expert of sort, then I'll reach out to various resources to get the kid what they need. And so that's how I tend to deal with the mental health of the kid.
Thank you. I appreciate all that insight. And if you see my eyes cutting, I got two monitors.
No, you're good. I know how it works.
Like, what is he looking at?
I know how it works.
Okay. Being that the next piece is focused around education and workplace representation, and you briefly touched that earlier. Hence why I said I think you had my questions already. But one of the questions I would like to ask you, because you touched based on that, with just education, workforce, and business. How can mentoring help prepare young people for the workforce, especially regarding representation and inclusion?
Yeah, great question. All of these have been great questions. And I'd go by a little mantra, if you will, is unapologetically, authentically me. And so I had to learn how to present myself in various spaces, but not take away my authenticity. And, I hate to say sometimes it calls for some code switching, but it's still your authentic self. And so, yes, education plays a role in this work, in general, right? Because that's the first thing that you're judged by is your paper. They see the paper and it's like yes or no. If I feel on paper they meet the criteria, I'll bring them an opportunity. And I've also learned that it's not always what you know, it's who you know, right? And that can speak to you as a person, a human, and what they feel that you could bring to a space. But I will continue to encourage. Not everybody's meant for a 4-year collegiate experience. Some it may be a 2-year associate, some it may be military, and some it may be getting in the workforce and operating in a trade. So there are various facets of presenting education. And I think we've adopted the fact that you have to have a degree or multiple degrees to really steadfast in the environment that we live in. And that's slowly becoming inaccurate, in my opinion, where education looks very different for different people and in various facets. Some of the prominent entrepreneurs may have served some time in prison that may have gained them a few certifications, not necessarily a degree, but they're effectively running a business. If we can be candid, that, the drug cartel entrepreneur, they're running a business, right? And they're not necessarily running it with a degree, but that's the street savviness behind education and how you learn through experiences, which much of our ancestors did. They learned through their experiences by being slaves and cropping crops and doing what was told of them to do. And so they learned and they figured out their own language of, next steps of here's what we're going to do, here's what we're not. And they made, so they learned on their own through their experiences. And sometimes that is the case. And so I think for myself, that's what I kind of let students know is be who you are, right? Be your authentic self and don't apologize for being who you are because you're you. But you will, there will be occasions where you have to straighten up a little bit and present differently, but still maintain an authenticity. And so, I never downplay the education of sitting in a classroom or sitting on a virtual classroom, obtaining knowledge. I appreciate knowledge. I'm forever a student in whatever capacity. It doesn't necessarily mean in high school. I'm learning from you. I love to learn and helping kids to understand that you're forever a student. You're forever learning. And it's okay if you don't carry multiple degrees behind your name, but you go and gain a certification in electricity, because if you think about it, we need lights, right? We need a plumber. And so trades are great as well, just certifications. But so to tie it in a bow, that's kind of how I help mentor students is maintain who you are, unapologetically, but also study and learn whatever it is that you either want to do, you are doing, be the best at it that you can be for yourself.
And you are knocking them out the park today.
Come on, doctors.
Okay, current events, because we know current events always shape society, right? People's behaviors. So I want to ask, and I'll bring this up because you mentioned business, so I'm going there. What are, and this could be schools or youth mentoring organizations. What are youth mentoring organizations, or in your stance, schools' most significant funding challenges, and how can listeners support the work?
You repeat the question again.
What are youth mentoring organizations' most significant funding challenges, and how can listeners support the work?
I think the significant challenge for organizations of sort is solely obtaining those that buy into the vision and are willing to undergird like a grassroots type of organization that's trying to have a great sense of purpose of where we want to take things, but it is getting those to buy into the vision and or what they can receive out of the service, if that makes sense. And so I do find that challenging because I feel like the work that I'm doing is very passionate, is very it has great traction, which can land youth into a direction of where they flourish. They learn themselves and ... But it can be challenging to get organizations to buy into what you've bought into and to source that with funding. I don't think there's fully a lack of funding per se, but the challenges can be those that buy into the vision of an organization wanting to support. And what comes to mind first is an alumni association, right, of a school. You have millions of alumni, and there are also millions that don't give back to that community in a monetary value. They may come in service, but it does take money to run organizations, right? So I would say the challenge can be getting a organization to buy into the vision of what that organization is that's seeking donation, and to help support and undergird through funding in whatever capacity that is. And then there's some that it takes you through a lot of red tape to gain advantage for funding. So if it's a grant and you got to, write certain things in certain words, you have to do a grant versus it just being a donation. So sometimes it can be a little red tape that causes some challenges as well.
Okay. Next question is, can you discuss how your organization adapts to changing societal issues that affect young people?
Yeah. So, again, my goal is to get students to see outside of their bubble through service learning projects and community service, and respecting those that may not have the same resources that you have, but are still just as appreciative about being a part of this life as you are.
Okay. Well, I got one more question for you, and it's around the future of mentoring. What is one concrete action listeners can take today to support youth mentoring in their communities?
One action today that they can support youth mentoring today. Right? That was a question, right?
Yes. Sorry, I had the mic muted.
Sure. No, you're good. This may not be, and I'm not going to say it may not be, this is what I feel is having a memory. Remember where you were when you needed support, when you needed help, when you were at a place where you didn't know if I need to go left, right, or keep walking straight. And I think we forget sometimes that we were in certain spaces prior to where we are now. So I would say take a walk back down memory lane to the people that touched you when you were coming through, to get to where you are, and where you want to go. I think for me, that's vital because, we get in spaces as an assistant principal now, right? Some think this is a high priority position, right? You're next door to a principal supporting them, which yes, it is for schools, but I never forget that I was a teacher. I never forget that I was a student, and how I started this podcast of remembering those individuals that led me to where I am today and where my aspirations are to go. And so I remember that. And so I would say if anything, have a memory, remember where you were when you wanted to get to where you are today, or where you aspire to continue to go to, of the people that touched you along your journey. I think that would bring some focus into why I need to find young people to speak life into.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm out of questions. I definitely want to give you the space to introduce yourself your position, organization, if you're okay with that, and how people can contact you if they have any, they want to send you any praise.
Sure. Yep, I am Keisha. I'm Keisha Bowser Smith legally, but I tend to go by Keisha Smith, is what so many people have known me by. I am an assistant principal with Wake County Public Schools. I'm not sure, at Leesville Road Middle School. I'm not sure. I do work for Leesville Road Middle School, and I am open and welcome to any conversations that will be had or to be had for the sake of youth. I have a very passionate heart to ensure that students are unapologetically, authentically who they are and understand that they do have the power to pursue their passion with purpose, in whatever capacity that is. And so if you are wanting to contact me, feel free to do so. My personal email address is Keisha, KESHIA.Smith80@gmail.com. Shoot me an email and we can connect. Please allude to, you've heard me on the podcast for YMC, so I won't think that it's spam, no shade, but feel free to contact me. I am a youth advocate, It's my heart. It's my passion. And I don't do this work for compensation or the compensation that many see as an educator. But I do this work because there's a future behind me who I hope to outlive me, but can also rest in some principles that I've instilled, whether, I planted the seed or I watered it or I uprooted it and moved it somewhere else that can say I appreciate Smith for her work and, for knowing her.
We want to hear from you. If you are interested in being on the YMC Me podcast, visit our website and email us at info@youthmentoringcollaborative.org.
Whoa, be yourself, king. Be yourself. Be yourself, queen. Be yourself. Be yourself, king. Be yourself. Be yourself, queen.